Well, Carrie, we're getting ready to enter Week 9 here. Obviously, Week 8 brought us a big amount of games that changed kind of the outlook of how we were starting to see things being pictured. And it goes back to show the depth of the NUIC as a whole. Obviously, we still have a few teams that are definitely upper echelon type teams, but the play within the conference itself with a bunch of teams there has really been one of those years where everybody can play with anybody at any given time. And it's been a lot of fun to really see that transpire. Obviously, with that, you had some big games last week where Aquin defeated Forreston, Orangeville defeated Dakota, Milledgeville lost to Amboy, and then, am I missing one?
Well, game you picked wrong. Well, I picked wrong too. Du-Pec did end up coming up bigger than West Carroll.
Right, correct. And that was a big game too as well, because that game, obviously both teams were already playoff eligible, but Du-Pec had to get that 6th win, or West Carroll had to get that 6th win. In this case, it was Du-Pec getting it to become a playoff clincher and get their berth into the playoffs automatically. Looking forward into Week 9, there's a lot of things to really take a look at as far as cutoff lines, playoff points, all that good stuff that goes with coming into Week 9 and getting ready for Selection Saturday, which is right here upon us now.
Well, and not only are we worried about points, I mean, there's so much more to that. I mean, with the Chicago Public Schools and that whole, dealio, I mean, you're going to have your work cut out for you.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that. It's going to be a lot of fun. As far as Class 1A and 2A, the only team that's really affected by the CPS lockout is, or strike, I should say, not lockout, but the strike is going to be Chicago Ore, who is in Class 2A. They do sit with 6 wins, so a forfeit loss or whatever, however they would get in, 6-2, 6-3, however you want to cut it up, it's 6 wins regardless. But they would be the only team in Class 1A and 2A that would be affected by the strike. So that's a good thing for Class 1A and 2A. Hopefully the CPS school system can get this stuff straightened out. We don't have to worry about it, and then we can go on with Week 9 as usual. But a couple games around the state to take a look at that are going to help shift those cut lines potentially are Havana versus West Hancock. Havana has a 4-4 record. A win would get them a 5-4 record to make them become playoff eligible. They do play West Hancock. West Hancock has had a down year this year, but West Hancock is the favorite in that game. Another one is going to be a team that we have seen a little bit of here in the NUIC, and that is Lewistown, as they play Bushnell West Prairie. A win will give Lewistown playoff eligibility, and that's a game that Lewistown is favored in. Lewistown did beat Havana this past week, so that helps change that perspective around there. The big one that everybody's really paying attention to is the Aurora Christian versus Wheaton Academy game. As Aurora Christian is 4-4, they need to beat Wheaton Academy to become playoff eligible and get into the playoffs themselves. Last year, that was a game that Aurora Christian won 34-33, and once again this year, that game really is a toss-up game, could go in either way, and it is being played at Wheaton Academy. And the last one is Carmi-White County and Hamilton County down in the Black Diamond Conference. The winner of this game will become playoff eligible. Both teams enter that at 4-4. So at a quick glance, those 4 games are going to be the ones to pay attention to as far as 1A, 2A. Could shift that cut line just a little bit. We're looking at a couple teams here or there. It's not going to be drastic. Right now, I speculate that the 1A cutoff will be at 304.5, which puts Oakwood into Class 1A. And likewise, the cutoff in Class 2A will be 412, which is Du-Pec falling back into 2A. Granted, this is just arithmetic based off of what's in front of us right now. Week 9 still has to play out, but that's where we're looking at. Obviously, we have some big games coming up in the NUIC this week. Stockton at Dakota. A Dakota loss is going to help Du-Pec out, but a Dakota win is going to, that could be one of those games too that could push Du-Pec back up into 3A for those that are paying attention. So there again, you got a team, Dakota 4-4 on their playoff deathbed, and you know, last week, even foreshadowing that game with Orangeville, you knew that Dakota had the strongest schedule of the remaining 4-3 teams, and that loss to Orangeville really hurt the Indians. EPC at Forreston is another big one. Obviously, EPC is at 4-4 in the same position Dakota is at. They have Forreston at Forreston. Got to take a look. EPC's got to get a win there. They get a win, that's going to put them in. That will also affect where Du-Pec lies. West Carroll at Aquin. This one is just a big game in general. Both teams are going to be in the playoffs. I've had some people from West Carroll asking, if we go 5-4 and lose to Aquin, where are we going to end up playoff point-wise? West Carroll fans, I think you're going to be all right, even though you're at 5-4. I have a feeling that we're going to see 1, if not 2, 4, and 5 teams make the playoff field this year. East Dubuque at Galena. This is a huge game, not for playoff contention, but for playoff points for other teams. An East Dubuque win will help Aquin out, as it will give them an additional playoff point, where a Galena win will help West Carroll and Forreston out with additional playoff points. And then if you take a look at Amboy at AFC, that game, Amboy will help Du-Pec and Lena Winslow. AFC will help Orangeville and Stockton. So you got quite a few big games here in the NUIC that can play a lot of havoc as far as how the cut lines can go, how playoff points will be awarded for seeding purposes, but it's going to be a fun week going into week 9.
I think it's going to be a stressful week for a lot of people, mainly the coaches, as to our, you know, where we get shuffled around to. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun already. You know, I've already had a couple coaches hit me up, hey, where do you think we're going to go here? Where do you think we're going to go there? I've also reached out to a couple other coaches that I do know and say, hey, where you got things going on and how you looking, things like that. So it is a lot of fun. Week 9's always a lot of fun as you get ready for the playoffs. But we'll break down the NUIC teams and their Week 9 games right now. Our crossover game this week takes us to Milledgeville, where the Missiles are 1-7 entering this game as they will play host to Orangeville. Orangeville coming in with that 5-3 mark after they beat Dakota last week 23-16. And Milledgeville lost to Amboy 25-8. Last year, this was a game that Milledgeville won in Week 5 in Orangeville 20-14. Obviously, last year, Milledgeville was much stronger than they are this year. Orangeville starting to look like the team we thought that they would be out of the gates at the beginning of the year. They're starting to get to that level of play that they need to be at. Obviously, they still have some areas to improve on. I still don't see where Orangeville has played their best game to date. But if you had to put a marker on what their best game to date would be, and I'd have to say it was that game last week against Dakota.
Oh, I completely agree. It was great to see just the mix of players, and I think they're ready for this next week.
Yeah, I mean, you take a look here, Orangeville, Milledgeville. You know, we've talked about it over the course of the last 3 seasons, where you could see Milledgeville's line starting to come up, and then you knew there was going to be a drop-off somewhere. And you could see Orangeville taking the exact same parallel path that Milledgeville has, just Orangeville has not seen that success that Milledgeville had, where, you know, Milledgeville had 2 playoff wins. Orangeville's still looking to get that playoff win. And this could be a year with us, if they can get by Milledgeville this week and get to 6-3, it'll get them away from that 15-16 seed where they've been buried at each of the last 2 seasons. And now it gets them away from playing Lena Winslow or an Aquin for another time around, although I don't think that Orangeville would be that afraid of playing an Aquin. But, you definitely don't want to have the opportunity to play a top team like Lena Winslow or an Aquin right out of the gates, especially when you've already lost to both those teams earlier in the season. You want to see somebody else. You want to see where you stack up at. And like you said, I think Orangeville, as long as they get by Milledgeville this week, they can have that opportunity.
Oh, they have amazing athletes. I mean, we saw it Friday night. They have just a plethora of players now that everyone's healthy and back, and I'd really love to see them. I'd love to see where the playoffs take them.
Right. So, Milledgeville obviously hard struck on tough times, low numbers, still playing very well.
Mm-hmm.
But I do like the Broncos in this game. Obviously, they got to come into this game focused, ready to go. If they're not, Milledgeville could surprise them. But I like Orangeville.
I have Orangeville finishing 6-3. So that's where I'd like them to finish. So I'm going to take the Broncos.
It's the matchup that everybody's been talking about all season long. Lena Winslow at Du-Pec. Lena Winslow comes in with an 8-0 mark. Du-Pec comes in with a 6-2 mark. Last week, Lena Winslow beat Galena 46-7, and Du-Pec beat West Carroll 16-8. Last year, Lena Winslow won this game 41-22 in Week 8, and when you saw that game last year, you heard a lot of people say, well, we put up 22 points and all this jazz. The problem was that it was 41-0 at halftime. Looking into this season, obviously Du-Pec has gotten to that level.
Mm-hmm.
They clinched their playoff berth with their 6th win last week against West Carroll.
Mm-hmm.
They've gotten exactly where Coach Hoffman and his staff has wanted them to get to reach for, to help build that program up, and that was simply to qualify for the playoffs. You're there.
And not just by the skin of their teeth. I mean, they've got extra.
Yeah.
Which helps you sleep a little bit at night.
It does. And it gives you a better seat because in projections, we had projected them as the last team in the 3A. On top of that, they were projecting to play Wilmington. Well, Wilmington ended up losing to Coal City, which that really isn't a bad loss for Wilmo as you head into the playoffs anyway.
Wilma.
But either way, Du-Pec doesn't have to worry about facing one of those top teams. And wherever they lie, 2A, 3A, you get into the middle level seeds, and I got reason to believe that they can play with some of those teams in that area, and I don't see where they can't at least maybe even take this a step further and get into a spot where they make a playoff win a possibility here in 2019 as well. Lena Winslow, on the other hand, is one of those teams that you can see playing at the top of 1A, obviously, but you see them at the top of 2A, you see them at the top of 3A,
but again,
playing with those types of teams.
Again, they are staying in 1A.
Yeah.
You scare people when you start throwing those things out.
Oh, no. Not people that follow. They know. But that's how good Lena Winslow is. Now, how far Lena Winslow takes this game is up to Coach Aaron and his staff. Obviously, you want to make sure that you take into consideration win the game.
But keep everybody healthy. Keep
Correct.
Everybody safe.
And that's just it. Push to get where you need to get to be comfortable, to put the game in hand, get your people off the field, and stay ready for next week.
Coach A's always known to do that, so I'm not too worried.
No, I don't think so. I'm not going to shy away here. I think a lot of people know that Lena Winslow is the team to beat. The only problem is that, with Du-Pec coming in, you have, well, I should say Lena going to Du-Pec, but either way, Du-Pec likes to throw the ball. This is a great test for Lena Winslow as they get ready to go into the playoffs to play a spread team that's going to go 4 wide, will give you that shotgun look every time with the single back in the backfield. And it's a look that, Lena Winslow generally has success against. But you get teams like, a Central A&M per se, or Tuscola a couple years ago that they played. They're going to be a team that's going to play this style of offense. So it's great for Lena Winslow to have this to go into the playoffs with. But I like the Panthers.
Obviously, I've really enjoyed picking Du-Pec all season. And being proved right most of the time. But unfortunately, again, leave the black and gold. Gotta go with the Panthers.
Our next game takes us to Galena, where they get to revisit their rivalry with East Dubuque. Galena comes in with a 1-7 mark. East Dubuque comes in with a 2-6 mark. Last week, East Dubuque lost to Stockton 50-6, where Galena lost to Lena Winslow 46-7. Last year, East Dubuque won this game 14-7 in week 2. It's actually been one of those times where East Dubuque has the upper hand on Galena the past couple of years, as they're starting to get some victories in this rivalry game that has primarily been dominated by Galena throughout the decades that it has gone on. This week, though, they get to play each other. As we stated in our preview, a win for East Dubuque helps Aquin out playoff point and seeding wise. A win by Galena is going to help boost West Carroll and Forreston. Obviously, for the NUIC North Division teams, it doesn't matter because either team's going to play each other, give them all a point or not anyway. But I'm sure Aquin would be very appreciative if East Dubuque won this game to get that additional playoff point.
Like I'm sure, Forreston and West Carroll would be very appreciative if, Galena won.
But it could be one of those times, too, where maybe Aquin wants Galena to win and not get that playoff point and maybe drop to a seed below so they don't have to face a certain somebody from the other side of the division, like Winslow maybe.
I was like, who are you?
But anyway, big game here between both teams. Obviously, both teams have played. They both played better than what their records indicate. They've been competitive, I should say. Obviously, you play to what your record is, so obviously they are 2-6, 1-7 for reasons, whether it be turnovers, not matching up, stuff like that. But they've both been very competitive in all the games that they've played. We've seen them play this year. We've both come away impressed with what they can do, with the level of fight and grit that they've played with as well.
And how they've intermixed players, because of injuries and stuff. And it's great to see that mix and those athletes still trying to come in and, do their part to win those games.
Yep. But in this matchup here, I do like East Dubuque. I think that the Warriors are going to get this win.
Well, we differed last week, so let's try and see if it works again. I'm going to go with the Pirates.
We move over into the South Division where we take up another game where Amboy is going to travel to AFC. AFC comes in this game with an 0-8 mark where Amboy is 1-7. Last week Amboy won their first game of the year, 25-8 over Milledgeville, where AFC lost to EPC 44-0. This is the first time these two teams have ever met, despite the close proximity between the two. They've never played each other in a non-conference game, and they've never played each other as NUIC opponents because of the differential in size enrollment in Northwest and Upstate split.
Please keep your hands over there, but yes. They have never played.
Anyhow, again, this is another game where you can see things where both teams have really worked hard to make things happen, have come up on the short end of the stick. We've seen some good performances out of both teams this year, but they just don't have enough to get over the hump. They don't have enough players for the depth to keep up with some of these bigger teams. But this game, too, is going to help playoff points wise for other teams. Amboy in the realm of helping out Du-Pec and Lena Winslow. AFC will potentially help Orangeville and Stockton. So you take a look at some of these games and you start looking at what can happen and what can go on. And really the big thing that stands out in this game is the play of Marcus Wynn. We've talked about him numerous times. Obviously, he's one of those special types of players that Amboy tries to utilize as much as possible. Another big player that has really stepped out last week, especially in the game against Milledgeville, was Austin Norman. And, you know, you start getting those mixtures of things going well for you, and you start to think, man, maybe we can start to build on something here. AFC, you know, you saw that with the Raiders earlier this year. They had a lot that they were being able to build upon. But as you start going through the season, you start to see where, you know, lack of numbers really helps deplete the opportunities that you have in front of you. In either case, it has not been the season neither team has wanted, but the fight and the effort of these teams has been great to continue to see as well. Who do you got in this week?
I'm going to have to see if I can make it 2 in a row and take Amboy for a second week in a row.
I will have to agree with you. I like the Clippers in this game. We head back to Forreston, where we have another rivalry game on hand, where Forreston will play host to EPC. EPC comes in with the 4-4 mark, where the Cardinals are 6-2. Last week, EPC beat AFC 44-0, while Forreston lost to Aquin 36-30. Last year, this game was played in Week 4, where EPC won 34-8 on their way to a 9-0 regular season mark and then a 12-1 overall finish, losing out in the semifinals. Forreston obviously went on to win the Class 1A state championship. So both these teams are very familiar with each other. Both these teams have had quite a bit of success over the last 5 years. And here we are again, EPC Forreston. This time a little bit different scenario where EPC is on their playoff deathbed. They need a win here this week against Forreston in order to make the playoffs. It's going to be one of those things, you know, Forreston is coming off their second straight loss. It's the first time since 2013 that they've had consecutive losses. The last time it happened, they lost to EPC in Week 9 and followed that up with a loss to Lena Winslow in the first round of the playoffs. This year, they've lost to Lena Winslow, and now they've lost to Aquin, and here you go. You got EPC coming, and they're hungry, wanting to get into the playoffs.
I was going to say, are they hungry like a wolf, but they're wild. Never mind.
It fits the storyline. Proceed. Wolf. Gotcha. EPC.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Anyway, you know, one of the things that Forreston needs to do in this game is obviously be able to sustain and contain the EPC defensive line in order to get their run game going. One of the things that Forreston was able to have some success in that you've seen is being able to get outside on the buck sweeps. That's an area where EPC needs to improve upon as far as the defensive side is being able to close up that edge. In the middle, EPC is going to be very tough with Wyatt Hammer and Eli Dirks and Bryson Sturdivant there. Forreston's going to have to be ready to go because they're not going to be able to just lean on running to the outside to win this game. They're going to have to be able to get Mulder going up the middle. They're going to have to get that double dive, that lead, and all that stuff that they like to run going so they can open up the counter and keep the buck sweeps available as well. Likewise, on the other side for EPC, defensively, Forreston plays a very basic defense, but they're very disciplined. They stay home. They attack the ball. Forreston is going to have to play up a little bit, and I would think that they might want to play a little bit man-to-man. You definitely want to make sure you have somebody on Braden Preston, probably somebody over top to help offset that opportunity for Lane Christian's the Braden Preston connection, which continues to be, the foresight of what EPC has going on. One of the things that EPC does have going for itself is the run game of Logan Krell and Braden Herron, as those two are really starting to get their run game going, and that can open up a lot of opportunities for EPC, especially in that spread offensive attack. I think this is going to be a really good game. I would not be surprised if it is close. On paper, Forreston should dominate this game, but realistically, I think EPC has underperformed to where they have been or where they should be this season. And with the playoffs on the line, I think EPC is going to come in ready to go. But I like the Cardinals in this game.
I like it too.
Next game takes us back to Conley Field, where Aquin will play host to West Carroll. Aquin comes in perfect at 8-0, where West Carroll comes in at 5-3. Last week, West Carroll lost to Du-Pec 16-8, where Aquin beat Forreston 36-30. The last time these two teams met, Kerry, was back in 2005, where Aquin won 56-50 in Week 5 in their last state title campaign season. Obviously, this year, Aquin and West Carroll meeting. I wouldn't say necessarily that Aquin is state championship caliber yet, but they've put themselves in a position to make a good playoff run in front of them. They're definitely a tough team that is a lot of fun to watch. I mean, I know me and you have really enjoyed watching them when we've seen them. West Carroll, same scenario, come in. Playoffs on the line. Well, not really. They're going to be in the playoffs, but 5-3, you want to get that better seed. You want to get to that 6th win. You take a look at what this game has, and it features arguably two of the best quarterbacks that we have in the conference, and Derek Tracy for West Carroll and Will Gustafson for Aquin. Both these guys have really wowed a lot of people throughout the conference as you watch these guys play. They're both very good dual threat quarterbacks that can run and throw, and they have a lot of good athletic ability to make you have to account for them, because you get them outside the pocket, it could be lights out for you.
Well, and with that athletic ability, I mean, they are just their awareness. You can watch them, and you can tell that the play was one thing. They see something completely different open up, and it's effortless.
Yeah.
So I kind of wish we were going to this game. I'm not even going to lie. I think I'm going to have to see if I can find Huddle Tape just to watch it.
It's definitely a good game to go to, especially if you want to see a lot of, like we just talked about. You're going to see a lot of athletic ability. West Carroll is going to come out with Michael Popkin and Colton Ballard. And then you're going to have Aiden Sullivan and Cody Sipe, where Aquin's going to counter that with Brennan Carlson and Ty Stiegel and Andrew Bowman. And then you're going to take the look at the line play. And really, I think right now the line play is going to be an advantage of Aquin. And that's where I see this game going to. I think this is a game that Aquin needs to win. I think it's a game that Aquin can win. But Aquin, too, the dogs have to come ready to go for this game, because West Carroll is going to be physical. I'm not so sure, what West Carroll did against Du-Pec. I haven't seen a whole lot. Obviously, Du-Pec was able to score quickly in the first quarter, and that was pretty much the difference in the game, because the rest of the game, Du-Pec was able to get just a field goal. West Carroll was able to get a touchdown. I know that both teams probably had missed opportunities. But, it's one of those things where, did West Carroll give 100% effort last week? And if not, they need to this week. You got to come ready to go. And you need to do that every week anyway. I don't care what your record is. You've got to come ready to play every week. Otherwise, you're going to get steamrolled. You're going to have tough times, and you got to learn from it. This game, though, Aquin is on a mission, and that mission is to say, hey, we've arrived, and we're going places. And, you know, the Bulldog faithful has had a lot of fun, but I like Aquin. We turn to our game of the week, where Dakota comes in with a 4-4 record, and they're going to play host to Stockton, who has a 5-3 record. Last week, Stockton beat East Dubuque 50-6, where Dakota lost that big game to Orangeville 23-16. Last year, these two teams met in the first round of the playoffs, where Dakota won 48-8. And Carrie, this is a game that has definitely reversed the roles rather rapidly this year.
I would definitely agree with that. Coming into this, I mean, we've talked about both of these teams an overabundance of times between the two of us. We watched Dakota and Orangeville this last Friday, and Dakota had some injuries. And I think that's going to be, if the injuries aren't resolved, because we weren't sure of the extent, if they could be resolved, how is that going, or not resolved, how is that going to affect this game against Stockton?
That's a good point right there. I agree with you that the injury sustained by Dakota last week that kind of took them out of the game.
It put a damper on it for Dakota.
It did for Dakota. And, you know, you're absolutely right in the respect to, you know, are those guys healthy? Are they going to be ready to go? Will they be there?
Well, and that's kind of the concern. Dakota's not into the playoffs yet. You and I talked about this actually on the way home from the game. Dakota's not into the playoffs yet. So, you know, you don't really want to rest if you don't have to rest, you know, I mean, because you want to get in. Stockton's in. But obviously they want another notch and better seating.
Oh, definitely. And, you know, it's one of those things where you got to have that gut check moment if you're Dakota. How bad do you want it? How much are you willing to sacrifice to get it? Is it worth it to you or is it not? And that's the questions that need to be asked of Dakota right now as you're getting ready to take on Stockton, a team that you absolutely annihilated last year in the first round of the playoffs. You don't think Coach Snyder and staff don't remember that game? You don't think they want a little bit payback this year? I would not be surprised if they come in here and they want to roll it up and run it up on Dakota. And how could you blame them for doing that? You want to deliver the same amount of angst to Dakota that they delivered to you last year. And now is your opportunity to do just that. Now, I'm not saying that Stockton is dirty or anything like that, because I have the utmost respect for Stockton, their staff, and everybody else that I talk to in the Stockton area. So don't take this the wrong way, but, you know, I think this game favors Stockton heavily. Obviously, I'm already going to make my pick. I'm taking the Blackhawks in this game. But Dakota has to come ready to go or they can kiss the season goodbye. I mean, there's a lot of high expectations on Dakota coming into this season, and they just have not lived up to them whatsoever. Stockton, on the other hand, was in reverse roles. Nobody had them expected to do a whole lot this year. Me, yeah, definitely. And they definitely said, yeah, no, we're going to do this. And you got to applaud that effort and that drive and determination and get to where they have. And now, like you said, they're getting ready to go to a game where they can get to 6-3 and elevate that seeding. Who you got?
Stockton.
We move into our Benchwarmers Player of the Week section where, you know, once again, a lot of good performances last week. You take a look at some guys that had some big games, and unfortunately, some of these guys have already won Player of the Week for us already this year. Will Gustafson had a big day. with 3 touchdowns. Hunter Hoffman had a big day with big yardage and a couple touchdowns, and you could throw in a few others. But this week, it was rather easy to take a look and see who our direct winners were, especially in the type of games that they had to play in and help propel their teams to victory. And in the North, it's Chase Jordan of Orangeville. Chase had 12 carries for 223 yards and 3 touchdowns in that big win over Dakota 23-16, a game in which Jay Doyle would be remiss to say, hey, they haven't beat us since 2008 in the regular season. And then in the South Division, you got Brennan Carlson of Aquin. Brennan had 6 receptions for 139 yards, 1 touchdown, 4 tackles, and a stat that doesn't go noticed is his pass defense in that game was tremendous, and he did a lot of big plays to help lead his team to a win, 36-30 over Forreston last week. So congratulations to both you guys on great performances in big-time games, and best of luck the rest of the way as well. Feel free to stop in the bench warmers, get your free extra large pizza and wings, and as always, we want to thank Eric White for that sponsorship and support as well. Moving into our NUIC Power 5, we've had obviously some changes to it once again. And as we crumble it up, throw it out, redo it all over, one thing stays consistent, and that's at number 1, Lena Winslow at 8-0. And then coming in at number 2, Aquin as well at 8-0, especially after that big win over Forreston last week. Speaking of the Cardinals, they will continue to come in at number 3 with their 6-2 mark, re-entering our Power 5.
No stranger to the Power 5.
Re-entering it for, what, the 3rd time now? The Du-Pec Rivermen at 6-2. And coming back in for the 2nd time this year at number 5 are the Orangeville Broncos at 5-3. So that gives you a look at our NUIC Power 5 and where we have that going forward. Well, week 9 is here, Carrie, and obviously we've done a rundown of all the games that we have coming up in the NUIC. Obviously, there's a lot of big moments that we've discussed that can kind of change how we see the playoffs play out come Selection Saturday. But it's a lot of fun. Obviously, we're going to get ready for our big selection show. We're going to have a YouTube live video on that as well. Saturday evening, starting at 7:30 p.m. The brackets should be released at 8 o'clock. So we'll run down, we'll go through what our projections are, where we see potential matchups, break those down. Then we'll announce the brackets, and then we'll stay focused to the NUIC teams and what their matchups and how we predict those will be. But it's going to be a lot of fun coming up here in week 9.
I will not see you at all this week, that's for sure.
Oh, sure you will.
You'll be doing your bracketology.
But get out to the game, support your teams. A lot of great games at stake here in week 9. As always, root for the NUIC.